I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, February 13th work session. At this time, I would like to ask Commissioner McCoy if she'd be kind enough to lead us in the invocation and the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, we come before you this morning, giving thanks for all your blessings and your mercy and grace. We ask you to continue to bless this board and all the citizens here in Harnett County. Give us the knowledge, the wisdom, and the patience to make the right decision for our county, Harnett County. In your name I pray, amen.
All right, item number 3, discuss a location for the farmer's market. Mr. Matthews, would you follow, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us this morning. Late last spring, you tasked Lynn Lambert and me with investigating the viability of a county-supported farmers market. Since then, we've been working to gather information, and this morning we'd like to share with you what we have learned and to talk about the next steps. We'll begin with a short presentation about what we've learned through our growers meeting and public surveys. And after that, I've asked Selena McCoy, our commercial horticulture agent, to share with you what we perceive to be our next steps. We have 2 goals this morning. First, we would like to get a commitment on property for locating a county-supported farmers market. And we feel like the best option is the area next to Harnett Regional Water, which was originally designated in 2014 Government Complex Master Plan for that purpose. Next, we'd like to ask for permission to apply for a Tobacco Trust Fund grant to support the construction of phase 1 of the market structure. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lynn to share what we've learned.
Good morning, Commissioners. In line with the county strategy plan that was rolled out to departments in the fall of 2022, you all had asked us to research the possibility of support for a local Harnett farmers market in line with Goal 3, Safe and Healthy Communities, and the key strategic action 3.3 of improving access to healthy foods. In order to do this, last year we really started a lot of work in investigating the public interest and the feasibility of a market here in the county. In doing this, we coordinated both soil and water and cooperative extension departments together to figure out the roles that each of our departments would play in pursuing this opportunity. We also conducted stakeholder meetings and interviews with our local farmers because we understand that without the support first and commitment first of our local farmers, then this project would not be a success. And so we started with those stakeholder meetings, having face-to-face meetings and also conducting interviews with those farmers to gauge the need and interest level in support of a farmers market. And then in November of 2023, we rolled out a survey to glean citizen interest and further farmer interest on support of a local county-supported farmers market. This survey was available online on several different social media outlets as well as in hard copy. From our survey, we gleaned responses from a wide range of areas throughout the county. The zip codes of Fuquay, Lillington, and Anger were the majority of zip codes that were collected by respondents. However, we were able to glean responses throughout Harnett County and even several from outside Harnett County, which some even appeared to be our service members that were deployed based on their comments. One of the things that we were most interested in is how often did our citizens or do our citizens currently visit farmers markets? And the response that we got from them is that they visit often, several different times throughout the growing season. And then from the written comments that were provided in the survey, they would certainly welcome one closer to home that they did not have to drive as far to reach to have access to this fresh produce and other local goods. Some of the farmers markets that they are currently visiting, the most popular ones were, of course, the State Farmers Market in Raleigh, the Fuquay Growers Market, Sanford, the small ones in Lillington and Dunn, and then again Holly Springs. So as you can see, our citizens are largely, for the most part, driving outside of Harnett County to visit these farmers market locations. Items that our citizens were most interested in being able to purchase at a local farmers market were fresh fruits and vegetables, honey, canned goods, and also eggs. These also line up with what our local producers here within the county have available for sale at a local farmers market. And so our farmers would be able to meet the needs of the citizens based on what they currently have available that would be able to be sold in a market in Harnett. We also asked the citizens what were some of the things that they enjoy most about a farmer's market. What draws them to a farmer's market? Their top 3 responses were the support that they can provide to our local farmers in visiting a market, being able to purchase fresh local food items, and then also that knowing that their money spent stays more local because they are spending it with people that live largely within the county boundaries and do business locally. We were also interested further in how the citizens and the farmers gauged having a local farmers market as a tool to support local agriculture and the local agricultural economy. Our citizens largely said that yes, that they do visit because they feel like a farmers market supports local agriculture. And our farmers responded that an effort for the county to facilitate a farmers market, a well-established farmers market of its own, was a great way to promote farmland preservation because it gave them an outlet for their products in order to make farms of all sizes remain viable. In addition, we surveyed the need for the facility itself from both our citizens and both our local farmers that would be interested in being vendors at a local farmers market. And largely the needs that are desired by the citizens as well as by the vendors are very similar. The top 3 items that they were concerned with in a quality farmers market facility, first of all, were parking, shade structures for both the vendors and the people visiting the market, as well as, of course, clean restrooms. In our focus groups that we did and our interviews with the farmers, we also have learned that it is very important to have a structured set of policies and procedures. That was one of the most concerning things for them of other markets that they have participated in, is that there were not well set policies and procedures for the vendors attending the market to follow. And also we found that communication, of course, with any successful project is key, but that is something that they were concerned about from participation in other markets, and they emphasized that communication was going to be very key from with our local farmers, and of course, communication and marketing will be key in order to attract our local and not so local citizens to visit the market as well. We further asked them about their preferred methods of communication, and surprisingly enough, the top method for both our citizens and our farmers were email, newsletters, and announcements. And so, of course, that is something that that takes time and a lot of knowledge of the structure of a market and correct communication methods to make that form of communication successful. They also were appreciative of social media type marketing and communication as well as the website. Now, as Tim alluded to, the idea of a farmer's market in Harnett County here at the governmental complex is not a new idea. This idea came about prior to the year 2014. There was actually a government complex park master plan study produced that was published in 2014. The drawing that you see here is a rendering of a structure that was included in that particular master plan that was based on the agricultural needs and would be of assistance in facilitating a farmer's market and other agriculturally based programs in the county. The location of this structure was indicated to be or proposed to be in the field that is now open between Harnett Regional Water and the Agriculture Center. The Agriculture Center is connected to this field by an already established trail, which of course would be a benefit to program facilitation in this particular area. Going back to the drawing here, part of this park master plan and the facility that you see here was intended to house not only a farmer's market. The farmer's market would be phase one, but looking to the future, there would also potentially be a phase two and a phase three. A phase 2 and 3 would entail a multi-purpose training area where we could have training events involving equipment, a facility with large roll-up garage doors. We could potentially have livestock shows in a similar facility as well, and even the potential of a commercial kitchen so that the local farmers would have a certified kitchen in order to further process their goods and have a higher value product for sale. That is one of the key factors in our local farmers and farmers markets vendors at remaining successful is that they are able to further process their goods and have a value added product. And so we see that as an important tool in the future moving forward, in addition to a multi-purpose training and livestock facility in conjunction with a farmer's market. And so it would really turn into a complex type area into the future where we could utilize the facility for multiple special events all throughout the course of the year, not just in the regular market growing season. It would become really a hub for community activities and multiple groups that were associated with agriculture and more to utilize. So there you see the location of the open field there between Harnett Regional Water and the current Agriculture Center. And at this time, I believe Selena's going to share some with us about our request to apply for a potential grant.
Hi, y'all. Again, I'm Selena McCoy, the horticulture agent here in Harnett County. And before I talk money, which is the cool part of all this, I do want to mention that this project also ties into objectives 4, economic strength, as well as objective 5, informed and engaged citizens. And within that, there are several points, to each of those objectives that this market ties into. So we're really hoping not only to meet the needs of our local farmers, but also to tie into the citizens, as well as what you as commissioners are doing for our county. So again, the cool part, money, is we would like permission to apply for the Tobacco Trust Fund grant. The Tobacco Trust Fund is one of our biggest grant opportunities here in North Carolina, and especially Harnett County, as they seek to support counties with strong agricultural backgrounds, and especially ones that depended a lot on tobacco income, which historically Harnett County has. So the deadline for this grant is March 8th. If we receive it, it would be awarded by the end of fall 2024. So it'd be a couple of months, but we would know something by the end of this year if we've got it. We will be asking for at least $1 million. So Cooperative Extension will be taking the lead on that grant, of course, with support from Soil and Water, as well as our other ag agency, FSA, the Farm Service Agency. We have already had a preliminary meeting with the Tobacco Trust Fund to talk about the viability of the project, to figure out how much they could do in different aspects of the project. And the good news is, it sounds like they are already on board. And that is because we've talked about the survey. So we've got support from both farmers and citizens. We also know there's interest from the county because it is outlined in the strategic plan and has been for going on. By the time we reach the end of this strategic plan, it'll be 20 years of working towards a farmer's market here in Harnett County. And of course, because we have already done the research to lay out what the organizational structure will look like, as well as what policies we need to put in place. Now, the really cool thing is, of course, nothing's guaranteed until, the paperwork comes out, but we do not see getting less than $500,000 for this. Even better, this is one of those grants where you do not need to provide a match. However, every little bit of support that we can document will add weight to the application. So that means by y'all giving us confirmation on providing the land for the project, then that'll put us just that much more at the top of the line for receiving this grant. If we receive funding, phase 1 is what will be funded. Phase 1 is the farmers market structure itself. So we are looking at some sort of shelter. We're hoping for at least 3 walls. It'd be cool if we could get a 4th. We're also looking at bathrooms, shade, and seating to make things comfortable and make things accessible. If we get the grant, the construction may start as early as the beginning of 2025. Now, that is if we are really got our ducks in a line and we're really moving towards this thing, okay? But of course, we cannot say enough the timing is right. We know the county wants this. We're looking at, again, by the end of this strategic plan, 20 years of working towards a farmer's market. We have farmers on board. We have citizens on board. We have all of the ag agencies in Harnett County unified in a desire for this. And we also know that the Tobacco Trust Fund thinks very highly of the work we've started in Harnett County, and we know that they want to work with us to make this a possibility, a reality. And of course, the location is right. If we can get that spot that is next to us, then the farmers market will have all of the support it needs to truly be successful. And that is what sets apart all of the farmers markets in neighboring counties, as well as the different towns in Harnett County, being able to have county support and then having the support of the ag agencies next door. So I know that's all I've got to say. So Tim, I guess it's back to you.
Thank you, Selena. I know, well, I just asked if there's any questions. I got the folks can help answer it here, so.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain the $1 million. There's something about $1 million grant you're applying for.
Yes, we're going for $1 million.
So you're applying for the $1 million grant?
Well, we're asking for permission to, yes.
Permission to? Okay.
Right.
So we don't have to match any of that money, right?
You do not have to
No.
match anything.
No.
Well, I think.
Tobacco Trust does not require a match. Now, when we go to them saying that we have, some to the land to put it on, that'll help us move up in the process.
If you go back to the conceptual drawing, I think it's like the right there, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
You were talking about a facility to hold meetings and that type of thing.
Right.
I know a lot of counties have, they call them expo centers or agricultural centers or whatever. Will this be built so that it's got high capacity, like could handle 400, 500, 600 people?
You've seen that. You were here before I was.
So yes, the idea is that this would be a large open span type structure that could be set up in multiple ways. We could have garage doors where equipment could be pulled in. I've spoken with even our state Emergency Management Office within North Carolina Department of Agriculture. They are very interested in having a facility centrally located in the state, such as this, that they could come out and do trainings for emergency management staff. And so that's what we're really envisioning is a multi-purpose type of space that is enclosed, a concrete floor, so that it could have equipment brought in. We can set up tables and chairs to have, sit-down meetings if needed, but just a very multi-purpose type space that we could even have animals into in the potential future. So if you've ever been, it wouldn't be to this scale, but to say the Expo Center that is attached to the Crown Coliseum in Fayetteville, how that is just an open span type area that makes itself useful for setup for many different functions. That is what we're seeing there.
I was thinking more like the one in Sampson County. That's a facility that you could have a countywide meeting and host hundreds of people.
Okay.
If we're gonna do this, I think we need to consider that as part of the
Right. I don't know
plans.
that I've been in the one in Sampson County.
And that would be in the future phase, but we would want to
Yeah.
build.
Right.
Oh,
build
yeah.
a market in
I think
the
this is
same
phase
way.
2 or 3 is what we were talking
Right.
about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Our goal is to start with phase 1 of the farmer's market, establish a successful market within phase 1, have it as a location where people are familiar with coming to. When you say farmer's market within Harnett County, that's what comes to mind when they hear those words. And so it's just an area that the citizens enjoy coming to, and then expand upon that with phase 2 and phase 3 in the coming years, as our needs grow for both county departments and our citizens. We would have the space to meet those needs for those types of functions, festivals, special events of all types.
When I add something else, I agree with what Commissioner Witherspoon said, because when the Corporate Ascension building was built years ago, public used to have some access to meeting in there. And so that is important if you include that, because we always need space for our citizens to have, meetings and all. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, if I may, Chairman. And this is, I understand this is an artist's conception of the master plan, but phase 1 would include what? This building to the right that we're looking at here? Okay. And I know that we're not in the details with that yet, but do we have an estimate as to what the cost of that, what kind of ballpark that might be?
We do not yet. That's where we're looking at moving forward, is our next step. Knowing that we have the space for structure, and then the next step would be to go out and gain further concrete plans for drawing, and then be able to obtain estimates.
But because we have a looming deadline on this grant application, we just need to go ahead and proceed on that, even though we're not sure what that $1 billion might end up paying for.
Right, and we did let them know sort of where we were at in the planning phase of this project, and they did say that it was okay that we did not have our final drawing, that everything was looking at an estimate for what it would be to construct the structure, and they were okay with that at this point.
Thank you.
In their first meeting with them, they were happy that we were looking at this in phases, not trying to go for it all at one time.
Yes, I just want to say wonderful job to you and your team. I know this has been brought up many times over the last several years, and we keep on kicking this around. You guys obviously have done your homework, and what a fantastic presentation. So basically what you're needing from us right now is kind of some distance and direction in order to go ahead and approve y'all to apply for this grant, one, but also to designate this land in the area for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation, we put the approval of the 2014 master plan for the farmer's market to be on the land next to Harnett Regional Water, as well as give the permission to apply for the Tobacco Road grant.
Second.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, yeah. Right, my apologies, I was thinking about next week. Just put it on consent agenda, please. Got a week ahead, folks, I'm sorry.
excited.
It's okay.
Okay,
Excuse me.
carry that. Mr. Blevins, you want to talk to us about the location animal shelter?
All right, I'll arm wrestle for the property, how's that? It was a good presentation, and mine won't be as good.
You lose the coin flip, so you can let him go first? Is that what-
I don't know who done that. There was a plan in place,
Have y'all discussed the overtime rules though? Because that's definitely,
Me and Tim are gonna meet after the meeting. It's fine, it's fine. I will say a couple things though. As you may recall, we had a needs study completed, and there was identified three sites that we would like to put the shelter at. And one of them happens to be the recommended site is the same site that you just voted on to add to the thing, to the agenda. So having said that, we are seeking some requests for guidance to how to move forward. And as you know, the board approved the current CIP, which is funding the animal shelter. And at the current schedule, we're supposed to be starting right now to do the RFQ and move forward with it. Having said that, I've drafted an RFQ. However, we need a location to make sure that the RFQ makes sense. So that's how we got to this point. So will we be seeking that? Again, during our discussions, I'll discuss the three sites, and actually I threw an additional one in just for comparison's sake, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I've also reviewed a listing of the county property that's available, that the county owns throughout the county, and the criteria I used for that was anything over 5 acres, and then looking at the 5 acres, for example, whether or not we had water, sewer, and then access to a well-traveled road, which is important, and I'll explain that a little bit. And again, we'll give you the criteria for each one. So I do want to give a quick background just as a backup. It's important to recognize that animal shelters today are different than the animal storage centers of the past. And that's important when you're discussing the animal industry, the animal welfare industry, and all those. Shelters are adoption centers. So we call it the new shelter, but what our working word is adoption center, because that's what's really all about. It's not just storing again, it's adopting animals out. A good animal adoption center is a quality of life issue for the citizens of Harnett County, and the citizens that we have moving in now are expecting that. We know that by the demands put upon us, so we know that we have to move from our spot now to something that's encouraging to bring people in, and think of it, retail's not the right word, but think of it as that. We'd like to have drop-bys where people come in and shop for an animal, because we're going to have plenty of them because of the size of it. But unless it's drilled down some, which we realize that's a very good possibility. Adoption centers where citizens come together who care about animal welfare, spay and neuter, and those type of things. Spay and neuter being the standard for across the nation now, and we're markedly doing a good program with it, and we don't want to stop with that. Adoption centers are again, loosely as a retail. Drop-ins are encouraged, and that's the reason why for well-traveled road, to make sure it's up front where people can see it. And then the last thing, a good adoption center is the first line of defense to triage injured animals and sick animals and those kind of things. So again, with this in mind, the previous study recommended the same site, because of where it's located at. It's access to water and sewer, and most importantly for us, logistically, is the Littleton locale, to put it in there. So let me try to figure this thing out. Here we go. So the criteria for adoption center is 3 to 5 plus acres, sewer and water accessible at the site, visibility from a well-traveled road, specifically for encouraging adoptions, drop-in, and other animal welfare activities. And again, the central location, and we're saying Lillington. Obviously, we're here in Lillington now, and it is logistically the way to go. I mean, to pick up an animal or send it on an emergency from, I don't have to tell you how much it takes to travel, but it could be the potential between the animal dying when we could have helped it closer. But so what I'm saying is, if you put it at one end of the county and you have to travel all the way up to Irwin, you could end up with an issue with it. So what I'm going to do is walk through the different sites and just give a little pros and cons for each site, again, under the study, and then we'll throw in the next one and then offer you consideration for some options. So the first site is, we call it Site 1, which is currently at our current place. We met with HRW to discuss, obviously, their expansion with the wastewater treatment. And as you can see, the dotted line, that's a forced main. So believe it or not, we have no sewer at the shelter. All we have is holding tanks. And again, that's the reason why we need sewer. So we have to get those pumped out quite a few times. If you look at the road at the bottom, where the force main is coming through, that area is going to be the access point for the new project, the construction access. So generally, HRW is kind of discouraging us for using it for, I don't know how long their project's supposed to last, but essentially the site was right where the trees are, the middle of that site. And a couple of things I'll talk to you about a little bit more, again, with one of the pros and cons. So the pros are, we believe it'd be site prep minimal. It's a central locale, it's county owned. The cons are, HRW is using that access for their project. They'd have to change some sewer around, get it off that forest main somehow, and I'm not an expert at that at all. There is little to no public exposure. You either know about it or you don't, and you can find it on Google, but it's nothing that people drop by and see. There's a potential for further expansion of the treatment plant in the future plans further down the road. We did talk to HRW about that. Mr. Ward indicated that there's always that potential. And the facility, I don't know if you've been down on a bad day, but it reeks down there quite a bit, and it's not from the wastewater. It's actually from the industry that's right outside our gate. I don't know what we can't figure out what they make, but it's something to do with eggs.
Probably.
Yeah, and it's terrible. So it's not conducive to the public coming in and having to shop, for lack of a better word. And then there's rezoning required. Now there's rezoning required for each site that we're going to mention because it's heavy industrial. I've talked with the town of Lillington a little bit, and all of them are doable as far as rezoning. So but I did put it in there as a con. The next site is, you may skip that? No, I'm just kidding. Meet me after. Well won. I'm a good loser. Anyway, so I'll talk about the site, and what's important, the site, as you see it there, we have a scale drawing that fits that site, and the entry would actually be from the current driveway. And the most important thing to us is it leaves it's 7 acres. So it leaves us a little room to expand. The current plan, or the architect's conceptual plan, has expansion on it on both sides, but essentially it would fit well in there. And at the front of by the driveway, the elevation, that's the tallest portion of the elevation, and it goes down a hill probably 6 or 7 foot. So consideration for that, I'm sure can be overcome. The pros are, like like everybody would say, it's got sewer, it's got water, it's approximately 7 acres. It's a well-traveled roads for drop-ins. It's a minimal site prep. It's a central locale. It's the main campus area for the county and our departments, the general service departments. Trails are important for us for senior citizen dog walking program. Again, with the new adoption center, you're trying to encourage other programs to get things going in that area and have volunteers come in. And seniors are, with a good walking trail is real simple to do. And then again, there's expansion space. The cons are an HRW. I say future expansion plans. Mr. Ward indicated that in his next budget, he's going to be asking for a maintenance shed. I don't think it's that large, but it will come into some of that property just a little bit. And of course, it's a prime location for other activities. There is some long-term sewer changes that HRW wants to initiate, and it's just to improve the area. So it's nothing big. It doesn't affect any construction or anything. And then the earlier plans included the Parks and Rec extension, and then the plan for 2017. Again, it requires rezoning. And then the last site is right across from Site 3 is from. Right across the street from Facilities Building that's on Alexander. And I can't see it too well from this, but I will say that if you can see it closer, I put the contours on there because it's very steep property. And the only suitable place to build anything is right next to that 36-inch water line and then the railroad. And it's right on the top where it's mostly wooded at, the green. And then the rest of the access it's probably a 10 to 15 foot drop down to the center, which is actually wetlands. But the driest part obviously is up at the top. So the entry to it and all those things, so make it sort of incompatible. Although we'd like it close to our other departments, that's a tough one. So the pros are it's close to our GS departments, fits well with the industrial use. In the area, all our office buildings and other things going on. It's close to Shiner Park and Trails, which is a big plus in our minds for the traffic drops in. It's close to main campus and of course the general service department. I think the cons are for this. The site prep's pretty extensive. You have to move a lot of dirt. I mean, there wouldn't be any parking space and definitely no room for expansion. Wetlands are at the bottom portion. There's no space for expansion, and of course the railroad's right behind it. And again, rezoning is required for this site. Not included in the study, and we threw it out there, so don't beat me up. It's actually to put it right beside the detention center and the back parking lot over here. We just kind of looked at it to see what it would do as far as a site that the county owned kind of deal. The pros are it's got sewer and water. So, however, it's approximately 2.7 acres. That's up to the road that goes into the detention center. It's a well-traveled road for drop-ins. As you all know, the library and all the sites are becoming very popular. It's a very highly used area. Minimal site prep. I think it was probably borrowed dirt that's on the top and probably just have to move it out. It's in a central locale. It's main campus and general services. The cons are it's a prime location for other activities. I'm confident of that. Does not meet the minimum 3.5 acres criteria, or 3 acres anyway. And that could be an issue later on if it was set to expand. So the option review. So I call it the option review. So you got site 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And again, the option is for the board to consider and give us guidance. Again, what I was emphasizing here that I did do a property look. It's a 30,000 foot look, but I did look at each. I mean, there was a lot of parcels, and I will say the majority of that listing is actually owned by the Board of Education, or at least it's earmarked for that. And then there's other really small lots, but we could not find anything that was conducive to the criteria that spells out, access sewer and water, a road to ease of access. And so there was none on the whole list. The option 5, the last option, which we think is to find and purchase land with stated criteria, is if we could seek that, that guidance from the board. Because obviously the best property in both of ours is already out, so.
Would you bring the map back up from parcel 1?
Parcel 1,
Mhm.
site 1.
Okay. I'm looking at this right. If you come up on the street and where you turn left to go into your facility now, these pine plantations in front of it, are you saying that's the site that you would use?
It was under consideration for the study. But yes, that was a site we talked about in the study. What I'm listing is the cons of the site, which was, yeah. Yeah, but that was part of the study. We had 3 sites. We had to pick 3 sites.
Those pine plantations are where you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
I didn't know if you were saying going there behind what you already got towards the lagoon.
No, it would have to be there. I mean, they've already started moving dirt around for the current wastewater treatment project.
And so that, I'm misunderstood, I guess. So where's the wastewater treatment expansion? Where would that be located?
Honestly, my assumption is going to be behind it. I didn't really ask, I'll be honest. However, Mr. Ward did tell us they were going to cut those trees down. That was going to be an access road to get to the construction site.
So I'll provide a little bit of context. So the site, they'll come in order to support the site. They'll have a yard here that they'll be working from. This lagoon that you see the edge of, a portion of that lagoon is gone, and they make it a smaller lagoon. And then the site, they create a new set of trains for the wastewater treatment process, basically taking away a portion of the lagoon.
Thank you.
And I didn't explore any more of it, honestly, when Mr. Ward said, it would be my recommendation not to use it.
Yeah, and, it's a 2-year construction process for the wastewater treatment.
Well, I'll be honest with you, that would probably be my least favorite of the options that we've seen today, because I'm sure all of you have been to the adoption center, current adoption
Thank you.
center. But, I mean, it's out of the way. It's somebody that's not really searching. You're just not going to find it. And I'm of the opinion it needs to be visible. It needs to be a state-of-the-art facility. I think it needs to be a prime location somewhere.
How about beside the county garage, property there, Holly's Mobile Home Park?
Which one?
If you're standing in the road looking at the county garage to the right, there's a mobile home park there. It was called Holly's Mobile Home Park.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm looking at the way it's been cleaned up and whatnot, that we may own it now.
We can inquire about it, and that's kind of what we want to know, is if you don't like anything you see today, we need to go and do some more homework and see what options may be available for us to bring back additional options. And that's okay. We just need to know that so that we can continue down this process. And we have about a month. We need to make a decision and determine our site.
Right.
So we can get going on the RFP process.
Got a question. Going back to option 4. Now it's 2.7 acres, and I understand you were looking for a little bit larger of a footprint. Is it feasible to operate this on the 2.7 acres? I mean, what is the reasoning for needing the 5 would be my question.
I would say it's feasible. Our only concern is a large enough livestock area. We don't raise livestock, but we have to take them in. And so
We have a spot right across the street for that.
But that's where our concern is for that additional area. And when I say 2.7, it's from the parking lot to the access road to the detention center. So there's actually a little bit more land in that area. So.
Hold on a minute before we go too much further. I think before we have a question.
I mean, the property that you were talking about close to the school, where they do garage and all that. That's on East McNeil Street, is that not right?
Yes, ma'am. Right before you get to Roger and the
Garage,
prison.
yeah. Seems to me that that probably would be.
But it would give them access on the road, busy place on the road. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the 2.7 acres is tracked over here by the detention center. I mean, it's got the visibility. It's right here, right by the walking trails. We own it. We can get moving on it soon. So is it not possible to fit it on that lot?
I won't say it's not a possibility. I would say we need to look to pursue it. Then, we can look at it for sure. I'm using these numbers, based on the study and the room, again, because the HRW site was recommended, the comments were made for expansion. And there is expansion in our plan right now. I mean, they indicate expansion because at the other ends. However, the acreage was right at 3, but I mean, it's a couple tenths less. I mean, put it this way, we're not gonna say no.
It'll give a lot of visibility.
It would be a lot of
I mean,
visibility,
that's-
you're right. It would also seem to me that we ought to, Mr. Trout, you might tell me differently, but just in, and I've not looked, but just in general observation, going back and forth on that road, it seemed to me that we might be able to utilize that parking lot that already exists there.
Yes.
So take that, would take away some of the land need if we don't
For
have to
parking.
put parking area there.
Right, definitely staff could park in that lot, because that's what it's set up for right now, is
Right.
primarily staff, and I would say any given day, it's what, 2/3 full tops? So staff could park there, and then the other thing I wanted to look at is the possibility that the part of the land across the other side of the road, the access road there, maybe potentially that's our site for our farm animals. That, that's an area that you could look at utilizing that as a smaller little area in order to get more space, even though that one piece is 2.7. If you access that, it's close enough, you could keep an eye on it and
Right.
make it nice, fence, whatever.
I would like to add,
So,
when you're talking about this piece of property here, behind the detention center, you need to look at that, because there might be I think that property code, we looked at it before. That drop holes in it. A lot of watershed. We might need to look at that. Make a decision, that piece of
Well, again, we're seeking your guidance.
Yeah, because the reason I'm saying this is because China was looking at buying that piece of property years ago. That's what took the survey. That's what we found. That's why we didn't buy that property. It may have changed. Things do change.
we own that land.
Which one? Yes, we own that land. We own all of this. We own, this parcel we own as well.
It's
That
all one
forested
parcel.
area.
Yep.
I mean, all of that area we own, but I think we've looked at that as being something to reserve for more of an office complex in the future. Also, based on the space needs assessment, a portion of this land up in this area would be needed for additional parking for health department staff as we grow. So we don't really want to, that's why I didn't consider this parcel, because it was a potential future use more in line with the office complex that we're currently in.
Well, my recommendation would be this option 4, just because it seems most conducive, especially with all the highlights of the property. I understand it may be a little smaller, but I know we need to make a decision on this soon, because this is another thing that we keep kicking down the road, and we're going to be talking about it next year. So,
Well, and I'll agree with Commissioner Nickel. I would like to see you, if you would just explore that and give us an update, I guess.
Well, what I was suggesting was we go back to our consultant that helped us with the project.
Yep.
And have them put a site plan together that would work with that parcel. so then we can look at it again in a couple weeks
Mhm.
and see what we find.
I'd like to see that, yep.
I agree with that.
Yep, I agree.
This is the board leave this open until Mr. Blevins can gather further data and come back to us.
Yep.
Clerk?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins.
No, thank y'all.
Okay, item number 5, discuss a request to consider a revised public transportation agency safety plan as required by the Federal Transportation Administration and North Carolina Department of Transportation Mobility Division.
We always have to put a lot of words in there to make
Yeah,
sure
it's
we
a mouthful.
mention DOT. So this PTASP is a requirement to be approved by the Board of Commissioners, and it's gone through the legal review and et cetera. So what this really is a safety plan set up under the safety management system that the FTA is using. And essentially what we do is we report obviously accidents, safety issues, and those kind of things. And we also share it with CAMPO and FAMPO as the MPOs within the county. And so one of the reasons we have to come back to the board this time is because we are now sharing that with both CAMPO and FAMPO. We had to document it and send it to them. And so that was a change that was written within the policy, or at least within one of the tables. And so we had to get the approval. So we don't come back to the board for approval unless there is a change or we have to change some numbers. And essentially our numbers are showing that our targeted safety accidents is 2% of 80,000 vehicle road miles. So it's, and an incident like that is like a fender bender, a bumper, fender bender. Good gosh, I can't say it. But anyway, so those are our goals. We actually went over our goals last year, but however, that's still our goals to go that way. And so what I'm asking for is the board to consider it and then add it to the consent agenda. Is there any questions for that?
Pleasure of the board. Put it on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Okay, item number 6, discuss a request to consider a revised drug and alcohol policy for Harts as required by the North Carolina Department of Transportation and the Integrated Mobility Division. Again, Mr. Blevins.
Again, long-winded, the FTA made some changes to the drug and alcohol policy for public transit. There was a couple additions in the entire document, but the biggest thing was they now allow for when you do alcohol testing to swab your mouth. And that was really the big pushover that we had to get. And we had to get this in preparation for a complete organizational review by NCDOT. So we wanted to make sure we got that updated before it was out of date and they came. So is there any questions for it? I'd be glad to answer anything on the drug and alcohol. Just don't do it.
Put it on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Hey, thank you, Mr. Blevins.
Perfect.
Item number 7, discuss a request to accept Department of Justice grant in the amount of $22,060. Major McNeil, who's not present today. Mr. Manager, can you?
Yes. So typically each year the Sheriff's Department makes an application for an Edward Byrne grant, and typically they receive it, but they're bringing it before the board as per procedure in order to get your acceptance of applying, acceptance of the grant.
Is that a DOJ 100% non-matching
Yes,
grant?
100% from the DOJ.
Consent of the board? Put it on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Item number 8, discuss the report of unpaid taxes and request an order from the Board of Commissioners to allow for the advertisement of unpaid taxes for the fiscal year 23-24. Ms. Wallace.
Good morning. So this is the annual report for unpaid taxes through January 31st of 2024. So this is the bills that were mailed for 23. And of course, those bills were due as of January 5th without interest or penalties. So this is the amount still outstanding as of January 31st at $3.5 million. So $3,529,000.41 $41.99. Since that date, we have collected a little over $500,000, so that number is quickly depleting. And with that, I would request permission to advertise for delinquent taxpayers in the newspaper. And we anticipate that in maybe late April, early May.
For the consent agenda.
Put it on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Discuss a request from the Board of Commissioners to make a decision in regards to the late applications for elderly, disabled, and disabled veteran exclusions in which the applicant did not qualify for the exclusion benefits of January 1 of 23.
That's right.
Wow.
So these applicants were for elderly and disabled persons and our disabled veterans. These applicants were untimely for the 2023 tax year, and they did not meet the minimum statutory requirement to qualify within that year. Such as the requirement is for age. We had an applicant that did not meet the age requirement or the income requirement or the ownership requirement. We also had one applicant that did not return additional information as needed, such as their disability documentation. So these persons would not have qualified for this exclusion in the tax year 2023. So with the Board of E&R having adjourned for the year, I have to present these to you as the Board of Commissioners to make a decision as to accept them. These applicants may apply, and we would use these applications to forward for the 24 year and then seek out additional information for them to see if they would apply for 2024. But today's decision is for a 2023 application. Any questions or clarifications?
We need to do everything we can to help our veterans. Period.
The requirement for
What's the dollar amount?
The dollar amount, so do you mean on the exclusion?
Yeah.
So for the elderly and disabled persons, it would be 50% of their value would be excluded. And for the disabled veterans, it would be $45,000 would be excluded from their value.
Do you have a total of what?
No, I do not have a total. We only had 4 applicants, and 3 of those were elderly and 1 was disabled veteran.
That's all the ones that are late that you need to,
I'm sorry, repeat that.
I said those, you only have 4 that are late that would fall under.
Those 4 that did not qualify, yes.
Approved.
So they have provided the information that you need now. It was just after the deadline.
Yes, it was after the deadline, but they did not meet the January 1st, 2023
Right.
Statutory requirements.
Do they meet them now?
Sorry.
Do they meet them now?
Some may, I think 3 of the 4 would meet the application for 24. But this would require us to go back into the 23 billing and do a release or credit their tax bills accordingly.
I guess the proper thing here to do is to put it on for further discussion for next week, and then we can call it to a vote and be done with it.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Is that agreeable with the rest of the board?
As long as that doesn't interfere with the time that you need
Yeah.
to knock it. Yep. Be good.
Madam Clerk, further discussion next week.
making sure there's only 4, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else from Ms. Wallace? Okay.
I got one more item.
Discuss request for commissioner to make a decision regarding acceptance and or denial of late applications of elderly, disabled, and disabled veterans exclusions.
Okay, so what's different this is those 4 applicants in the last agenda item did not qualify for 2023. These late applications do qualify for 2023, so there's no question as to their eligibility for the tax year. So I would just be requesting approval for those applicants.
So they just turned them in late.
They just turned them in late, yes.
Consent of board. Madam Clerk, put it on the consent agenda. All right.
All right, thank
you, ma'am. Item number 11, developmental services briefing on the following upcoming public hearings.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jay Sykes is presenting two proposed staff-initiated, department-initiated text amendments. First one is in reference to LED signs. LED is kind of like a broad term now, but it's more so with the ones that essentially has like a TV on it, removing changeable messages. The request is to, one, make public service buildings that are within the county, any sort of county-owned facility, fire station or schools exempt from the percentage of how large the screen could be. And the second one would be the distancing on site. Say if a school had a name, the name of the school out front, and then they had one of these interior, we would take that away as well. Usually, this like a school, it's been kind of exempt from it just because of it sits on a large parcel and the distance doesn't really apply. But just in case it does, we were taking away those exemptions as well. The 300 feet is what it is exactly. Planning board did discuss this quite a bit because they wanted to look at it and see if it would be applicable to businesses as well. There was some thoughts on if it was going to be across the board, how would we change the current standards, which is no more than 35% of the sign, and usually the sign is either typically if it's on a one parcel store or facility, fire station, it's either 100 to 150 square feet based off of how big the parcel is. So right now it's no more than 35%. We made it across the board, kind of going back and looking at previous permits, and more specifically ones that we've looked at for the fire stations or the schools that would, kind of got a lot of this going. We looked at a 50%. Say 50% would be the sign, 50% would be the base, obviously the foundation that essentially the screen would sit on. So that's what we kind of discussed at the planning board. Planning board also discussed, a couple of members brought up and said, okay, well, what if you have 3 or 4 different parcels in a row where each business could have its own sign? Is it a hindrance to, say, visibility? Is it an aesthetics thing? Is it a safety thing, safety factor across the board? Then another planning board member brought it up and said, okay, well, if all the standards exist right now as far as how many messages could come across the screen, it's not like a rolling thing, kind of like at the bottom of a news channel or something like that, where it's just continuous. There has to be a delay in the message, and there's certain colors too. Like a red and a blue can't, anything that would blend together is just sort of tricky to look at. So at the end of the meeting, the board again discussed revising all those. They recommended unanimously to approve it as written because of the factors that are within the rules and regulations for the safety factors. So they actually entertained the thought of a business, but they wanted to, for this moment, said, okay, because, and really we don't get a lot of standalone businesses requesting these types of signs. And actually we have one planning board member who owns a business, and he said, really, as it stands right now, it's a big monetary situation. The bigger the screen, it really jacks up the price on the sign. So at the end of the day, the board, again, discussing those revisions, recommended approval based off of the concerns for the larger digital signs, the portions for all commercial signs. And then there was no one present to speak in opposition, and also they recommended approval of the elimination of the 300-foot distance. So as it would read, the 35% would still stand, and this section shall not be applicable to public service institutions, such as schools and fire departments. It's just 2 examples. I know that's a lot of thoughts, but again, the main thing was just looking at it, should it be specific to like government and schools, fire stations, etc., or should it be across the board? So that was kind of the 2 discussions at the planning board. Questions or anything? Well,
I apologize, but in the end, the planning board unanimous in their agreement to leave it as presented, just the public.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
So you're telling me that fire stations, medical facilities, schools, fire departments will be exempt from the regulation, and we won't have to hear that every time they want to put a sign up?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
That is indeed exactly what it says.
That's exactly what it says right now. Yes, sir. That's what it says. That's
Agenda. On the consent agenda.
Doesn't this have to have a public hearing?
yeah. I'll be back with this, and
Does this have to have a public hearing?
it does. Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah.
Text amendment.
Yep.
That's
So we'll
my
back to
mistake.
those. Our
For public hearing.
Our other text amendment is also in reference to signs, another department initiated one. This is in reference to local directional signs that could be in reference to local entertainment signs, local attractions, anything for economic development. Whereas basically it'd be a new section called All-Site Recreational and Cultural Interest Signs. So, you know, if you have anything from river access to, let's use an example for, let's say, Aloha Zoo.
Aloha Zoo. yeah.
Aloha Zoo, yeah. You know, they have a sign out there, and I know we've discussed it in the past, like if DOT, trying to get a DOT sign to, you see a lot of exits. Actually, DOT signs for local interest, it's based off of traffic trips. Of course, it's, you know, DOT is going to be very quantitative, so we wanted to add something to where we could locally allow for it, and as long as the property owner is okay, it seems to make sense across the board. Planning board recommended it unanimously as well, and no one spoke in opposition.
So you need a public hearing on this.
Yes, sir. The public hearing as well. Yeah, it'd be a separate.
Public hearing next. Okay, looks like we move on to item number 12.
Thank you.
Ms. Lambert again. Discuss a request for permission to apply for round 2 of stream flow rehabilitation assistance program funds from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Yes, so we are here today to request to apply for round 2 of the North Carolina Department of Agricultural Stream Flow Rehabilitation Program funding. To date, with these funds that we received from round 1, in combination with both federal and state funds that we received in response to Hurricane Florence, since 2021, we've received a total of $2.5 million for stream debris removal, and we've been able to remove vegetative debris from 89 miles of stream with the hopes of reducing lowland flooding, protecting both the potential loss of life and property damage during heavy rain events. With this next round of funding, round 2 of STRAP, we are requesting permission to apply for $1,595,000 in an effort to clean out 18 additional miles of waterways within Harnett County. There is no match required for this grant, and 15% of the grant can be used for administrative costs. For example, with our previous funding, we've been able to purchase a utility vehicle for use with field projects, as well as the trailer to haul it on, in addition to canoes that we can use to assess these streams for work needed, as well as inspections. The areas that we are proposing to use this next round of funding, we've divided into 3 zones. Zone 1 would be East Buies Creek, and West Buies Creek. And so as it sounds, those particular areas are all right there in Buies Creek, right around Campbell University. East Buies Creek would be from Kivett Road to the actual Buies Creek. Buies Creek would be from 421 all the way to the Cape Fear River, and West Buies Creek would be Sheriff Johnson Road to Keith Hills, which we know that that's an area that has been evacuated in the past during large heavy rain events such as hurricanes. Zone 2 would be Thornton Creek and Juniper Creek. Both of these would be from 421 to the Cape Fear River. And Zone 3 we're proposing as Hector's Creek in the northwestern portion of the county, which would be from Rawls Church Road to the Cape Fear River. During round one of our STRAP application, we received $379,528, which we utilized on Neals Creek, adjacent to the Neals Creek Farms community, to address some flooding issues that those landowners were having there. We feel that these creeks within these three zones meet the requirements and would have a positive impact if we could have debris removed from them. Of course, there's a limited pot of money within this grant to be spread statewide through all of the entities that apply. So our ask, we're proposing to be the 1.5. However, this grant allows us the ability to adjust our scope of work to meet the amount that we are granted. And so therefore, that's why we have it divided up into zones 1, 2, and 3, so that we're ready to adjust our scope of work based on the funds that we would receive. If we don't receive the full request, then we add the creeks that we have already analyzed to our next application round and then just apply for those next time. But at this time, we are requesting permission to apply for round 2 of STRAP funding in the amount of $1,595,000 with no required match.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
None of these areas would be in, let me say it this way. Stewart's Creek would not be in any of these areas, right? And you did say something about going down 421.
Right. We're
To the
talking about
river,
Thornton Creek and Juniper Creek, which is
right,
closer to Irwin.
Erwin. That's why I was asking, was any of close to Stewart's Creek, to Stewart Creek area of, what is it, on level for Irvin Road.
None of
Would
these.
none of that would affect that area, right?
None of these are in our Riverside study area that we're working on for another project.
Right.
Right.
That's the question I'm asking.
Right. None of these are, because right now we don't feel like that STRAP meets the needs of that particular area.
Okay. Well, all I gotta say is we gotta find something that meets the need for that area. This is something we've been working on for a couple of years here.
Mm-hmm.
And got no results from it.
Right. Yes,
The
ma'am.
money we spent, no, the research that's been done in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we are continuing to work on that particular project in addition to this one.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from Ms. Lambert? Consent agenda? We don't consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Chairman, I know this is probably somewhat inappropriate. Could I make one request?
Absolutely.
Ms. Lambert, Mr. Trout, could we get an update on the Riverside project maybe at our next work session?
Sure, we can do that.
Appreciate
We've
it.
got some things in motion right now. Deputy County Manager Coley is working on, Price is working on some different things that
Yeah,
are
and
going to
Mr.
improve
Mr. Price is,
our study of that area.
right, he's kept me somewhat updated, but I think it'd be good for public if we
Yep,
got
we'll
an
update.
update.
Yeah, we can do
Thank
that.
you.
Okay.
Tim, anything else from Ms. Lambert? Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Honeycutt, item number 13, discuss a request that the Harnett County Board of Commissioners approve a distribution request to draw down $949,000 and change from the needs-based school capital fund of the North Carolina Education Lottery.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Morse and commissioners as well. What you have before you is a distribution request to draw down the remaining $10 million of the capital needs-based grant that the schools received. Basically, we spend this money and then we report the expenditures and then we draw that down. And just to give you an idea, the project budget for the Northwest Harnett Elementary School was budgeted at $45,802,344. To date, we have expensed $43,516,490. I will get it there in a second. So basically, we've got about 2.2 million left. We have not closed the project. We still have a few final invoices to pay out for the contractor. Things are winding down. I think there's just a few punch list items. I was in conversation with the finance officer of the schools. And so this is actually a dual application, so the board would need to approve a drawdown of these funds. And the school board will also have to approve that. So at the bottom, you'll notice that the chairman of both boards will have to sign. And then we will be able to draw that money down to reimburse us for the funds that we have spent. This will wrap that up.
Okay. Consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 14. Discuss a request from the Salibi Family Branch of the YMCA to the Sand Hills to consider a pledge of up to $295,000 so they can begin construction on a child care addition. Commissioner Nickel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is on the agenda. The Salibi branch, which is a member of the YMCA, so one of our branches of the YMCA, the Sand Hills, looking at doing a child care addition. Down on the western side, I'm sure y'all are familiar, we've got a abundance of population, but not a whole lot of entertainment things going on as well as child care is a big need. But the Western Harnett Youth Rec program is about busting at its seams. The YMCA down there is starting to do a lot of programs, help facilitating with youth sports and getting in some other programs and groups in there as well. But this right here will be for an addition. We're already busting at the seams at the Salibi branch. It's had a great impact on the local community. It's being very well utilized, and there is a need for a larger space specifically for child care and also other programs. So at this time, I will have the CEO, Mr. Jeff Darling, come up, and he'll be able to give you some more insight on this project.
Thank you, and good morning. Basically, just as a follow-up, we have found more requests for childcare than we can currently take care of just because we are very facility bound. And so about a year ago, we started looking into the possibility of putting an addition onto our existing facility specifically for the purpose of childcare. And the childcare would be in the form of preschool, toddler care, infant care, and then after-school care for elementary students. Just as a pilot, we started a program this school year in a very small scale with what our current facility would allow us to do. And 30 minutes after we opened the registration, we had a waiting list. And so it really told us, yes, we really need to move forward with this project. And so the project consists of adding 3,300 square feet to the existing facility. That would be 8 new classrooms. Again, that would take care of infant, toddler, preschool, and then in the afternoons, it would be additional space for our after-school program for school-aged children. We have been working with Ray West Design on that design work for the building. We have the cost estimates at $844,000. To date, we have raised $300,000 that is already committed. We have 3 grant requests out that would be an additional $250,000, leaving the $295,000 that we're still seeking funding for. It is a shovel-ready project. What we have been told is that once we give the go-ahead on this, it would be a 4 to 6 month build-out. With the goal of opening January of 2025.
What, do you know what the total cost of the project is?
It's 844, just slightly over 844,000.
Funding for the rest of it.
Correct.
Do we have any of these facilities on any other parts of the county?
No.
As far as, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a much needed project, but you're asking for a lot of money. Do we have any of these kind of daycare centers in any other parts of this county? That's what it is.
In addition to the YMCA,
don't.
we do not have another YMCA inside of the county currently.
Not with this organization. This location he's got at 187 is the only one.
But you do provide after-school care in quite a few other areas.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. We do use some school sites.
Right.
And so when that becomes available, we move a team in and operate after-school care on some school sites that are currently going.
What sites?
We're in Highland and I believe Johnsonville.
Johnsonville and Highland, as well as summer programs as well too. You might want to mention.
Correct, yeah, and we do operate summer day camps out of our current YMCA facility as well. Last summer, we had about 275 kids that we took care of through that program.
That's one of the questions I was going to ask. Do you have this program in the YMCA out there?
We do a summer camp program that's
Yeah.
on the facility in Western Arnett, yes.
Okay.
And this expansion would allow us to serve more children. So last summer, we had 270 children that we were able to take care of. With the expansion, we would be able to add an additional 100 to the summer program and 77 to the school time programs.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add this as a line item for further discussion.
Madam Clerk, put it on further discussion next week.
Thank you.
Item number 15, discuss request for security equipment at the jetport. Commissioner Matthews.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I asked that this item be placed on the agenda for discussion today, as I'm having some conversations a couple of weeks ago regarding the termination of the new terminal project at the jetport. Discussion kind of centered around the security and what was going to be done in that regard. Talked with Mr. Ira Hall, and I think the plan at this point, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was a plan to move the cameras that we had at the old terminal over to the new terminal, if I'm correct. I guess my point is, I would like to see us look at the direction that we want to take on this, as I kind of mentioned with the animal shelter a while ago, or excuse me, the adoption center a while ago. We're going to have a state-of-the-art facility here that I think really, if we're looking the direction that we want to go, that we would want to look at a state-of-the-art security system, not only for the new terminal, but for the airport in general. So I just feel like we're at a point where we need to put out an RFP and see what kind of system, outline what kind of system we think we would like to have there, and see what kind of prices we get back, what kind of service that we could get with regard to security going forward at the airport or at the gym.
How much would an RFP delay the completion of because I know they can't complete the ceiling until they know where the wires are and get those wires run. How much is this going to delay completion of the terminal?
Right now, the terminal is probably, I would say, final completion is slated for probably towards the end of March. So we would need to identify whether or not wires are going to be necessary for something like that. We have a number of systems that are already in place for the data cabling and stuff like that. Ira, based on what we have, what would you expect might be needed based on things that you've looked at and talked to with the vendor?
Well,
I guess I need some clarity on what you guys your expectations would be for the security system. We are moving a few of the cameras that we have, but we are adding multiple cameras.
Or if I may,
Sure.
for me personally, we're gonna have pretty much a state-of-the-art small airport. We need to, do the system we have now, it tell us when people came and went. Is it alarm if a building is opened? Does it alarm if there's a fuel leak? Does it alarm if there's any kind of odd movement in the middle of the night?
So the system that we currently have will do most of those things. Fuel leak is a new one. I hadn't thought about that. That'd be an interesting scenario. But I think there's some sensors and stuff we could put in place to do that. Of course, there's lots of cool technology out there, and honestly, I've seen some recently that looks good and looks pretty awesome. I'm just not sure if it's overkill for this situation. But I put a PowerPoint. Let me just show you what we've got, so you'll understand what we're at once this building's done today, with no changes, no additions, no nothing. If you'll minimize that, I think it's on the desktop. It should say like Harnett County Jetport somewhere there. There it is. Yep, that one. So I put this together because I didn't know exactly what direction it was, but I think we need to just get a basis here. So first off, we're going from just hard card or physical key access to a card access, which is all of our new buildings. You guys have one to get into this building. So we're putting card access at all the outside doors, making sure everything's covered. I just pointed out, this is actually the most recent picture of the current terminal being built, so that's why the mounds of dirt and everything around it. So, we're putting card access at all the external doors. Some of the doors not only have card access, but they have keypad access. So if you don't have a card, like the easy one is a pilot that's coming in and wanting to rest for a little bit. So they have key access or a PIN code access on the door to the pilot lounge. So that way they can get in and out without having to have a card. So we can provide that to them. So we can easily make unique IDs for each pilot that comes in and out. So we can see who's coming in and out of the pilot lounge. Of course, the card access shows whoever owns that card. As long as they're not passing the card around, if Mr. Morris goes there, slides his card, Mr. Morris shows up that he slid his card and can get in that door. So we got card access to those doors. We also we're adding card access to each of the gate entries. Before it was just key code, but now there's keypad and card access. And again, before it was just a generic key code that wasn't really being logged or tracked. If you go slide your card or put a key or put your PIN number in and open up the gate, it correlates back to a name that's on our register, and we'll keep those logs now. So we're seeing who's coming in and out a little bit better once this building's done. And then also we're adding camera. Oh, this is just another look at the card access and PIN pads just around the building. We're putting it out every entrance, just kind of noting it. This is the aerial, the top of it's the road, and the back up's the landing strip. So just another shot there. And then the gates, of course, will have key card or PIN code access. That is now, so the cameras.
Mr. Hall.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if it please the board, I'd like to ask to be excused from the meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, let the record reflect apart from the meeting.
So just to kind of give you an idea where we're putting cameras, we're putting cameras at every corner of the new building and underneath the entryway, another aerial access. We'll have cameras all the way around the building, being able to capture as much of the area as we can from the building. We have some potential plans of adding them down around the hangars and just putting that onto the system. There's a total of 13 cameras currently planned for the building. There's wires supposedly there. There's a little bit of a mix-up on some of that, but there's supposed to be 13 cameras there. 4 of them are internal. Is that right? Maybe 5 internal, 8 external. No, 9 external, 4 internal. So we're trying to cover all these areas, making sure everything's good, and we may need to add some if you feel like there's need coverage there. These particular cameras will actually pick up They'll detect if there's a person walking. They'll detect, as is what we have today, they'll detect if there's a car driving by. And they'll detect if there's there's some new functionality. We'll have to add some new cameras anyway because we don't have enough to cover all these. But there's new functionalities with the new cameras that'll actually pick up a license plate and kind of decode that and hand that back. But that's all kept internal. There's no correlation to any external data sets. So, just to use a crazy example, if you're on the top 10 hit list in the United States and you show up and your face pops up on my camera, there's nothing for me to correlate that back. I would have to know physically looking at that camera that you're on the top 10 hit list. There's cool stuff out there that'll help do that, and we'll potentially do those kind of things if that's something that we want to go down. But right now, there's a lot of little built-in features here, and all of these can be alerted. We have turned on alerts, for example, at our building. Honestly, that's the pain point. It just is very painful to tweak these things, ideally to say, well, between the time of X and Y, I want to know if a person's walking across this airport or if it's a dog running across the lane or whatever. And it's just hard to really nail that down and think through all the potential scenarios. And then somebody's just getting pestered all the time, which is what happens most of the time with these alerts. And then it just becomes white noise and no one looks at it anyway. So there's third parties out there that will help us monitor that. But then again, we may have to hire staff to monitor that. But even some of the stuff that I've looked at, they are not a 24/7 monitoring system, although they do that with the latest buzz term that everybody's using is AI techniques. There's really no one there that's monitoring all this for us. They're just helping us tweak it to where we don't get alerts for a goose flying across the runway, but we do care about a coyote that's running across the runway, that kind of stuff. So, but that's kind of where we're at. I just wanted to kind of get you guys to what our plans are, what we're currently putting in there. Now, there's systems out there that we would have to replace all of our cameras and take that on as a more of an expense. We wouldn't be able to use our current cameras that we do have. We'd have to actually replace everything and then integrate different software to do some cooler stuff. And there's also systems out there that will suck in our camera feeds and provide back information directly from our cameras. And that would be the ideal solution, in my opinion, because then we can not only use it there, but maybe we can spread that out across our other campuses that may need something. So that's my probably way longer than it should have been update.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
It sounds like everything you've got is designed around the terminal itself.
Right.
Okay. As we add hangars, there were several in the plan.
Yeah.
That are not getting any negotiated. If we need to expand the system that goes across the road to several hangars,
yeah,
and put in the things that I talked about, does your system currently have the ability to do that?
Yes, it does. Yeah, we can add as many cameras really we can as we want to this. Some of the things that I've looked at recently would just be another layer on top of what we currently have, and they would just help us automate some of the notifications and some potential things, and they some of the things I've looked at even could go back and correlate top 10 list if we wanted it to, if we wanted to pay for that extra feature.
When you say facial recognition.
Yeah. So it would say, hey, Bill Morris, because he walked in front of this camera, I know he was there. He could potentially do that.
We've got one opportunity to do this and do this correctly. So, and I commend everything that you've already done here. But I'm going to agree with Commissioner Matthews. I think we need to put the quality out and include all these things we just talked about.
Okay.
And see what it costs.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there, and then you integrate it into what you've got already, and we'll figure out what to do at that time.
So when I do this RFP, when I start thinking through all this, what are you guys, there's so many aspects of things now. Are you thinking just camera sides, being able to capture more data, being able to correlate more data?
All of it together.
Okay.
Get creative about it. We want the best.
Oh, I can spend money. So yeah, okay. I'll do what we can, and we'll put this together and try not to mess with the timeline of the terminal completion.
So you can bring a report back to us?
Yeah, well, I'll put a RFP together and we'll put that out, and as soon as I get some responses to that, I'll come back and report based on what we see in the RFP.
Pleasure the board leave it open for 2 weeks or so, or?
Well, the RFP and
You got some
timeline will
direction,
probably
or-
be more like 4 weeks. By the time he gets it out and we allow time for responses, we're probably looking at a
Getting
minimum
down to the
of 4
wire.
weeks. We'll push it as far as we can, but generally you need to have at least a limited amount we need to have a limited amount
Well,
of response.
excuse me, I apologize, Trout, but I will say thank you. I do feel better, a lot better now that you shared this, because it's obviously with the electronic access, being able to know who's accessing when, time stamped, all that kind of stuff, much better than just moving a few cameras. So I appreciate that. But I think I'm correct to say, I understood you to say that we do not have a monitoring company.
Right, no, we don't.
So
have
you
monitoring.
are who's monitoring all this?
It's just when
Typically,
we
it's
get-
a record and review situation if we have
when there's something
an issue.
What I'm looking for is if Mr. Price's airplane starts leaking fuel at 2 o'clock in the morning and fills that hangar full of fumes, are we gonna have somebody notified before it blows up? When a fan or whatever, heating unit or whatever comes on? That's kind of where I was headed with this.
Or we're gonna find out in the morning the plane was stolen,
Yeah.
or equipment was taken, or whatnot, yeah.
Along those lines, if you will. I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
no, you good. I understand it's a broad spectrum of what's out there.
Yeah.
I understand it can get
I mean-
very expensive. But at the same time, I would like to have some idea of what the options look like.
I foresee an RFP that has a number of alternates. Basically, we look at each of the different types of technology you mentioned. We ask them to provide a cost for that alternate. And then we would select from the menu and determine which ones we feel are important in order to include as part of our protection at the time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hart. All right, item number 16 is actually 3 items put under one number. It's discuss tap fees of Waterline, Antioch Church Road, and Old Hamilton Road, and 421 to Red Hill Church Road. I had these put on there. The first one is the tap fees. It looks like our tap fees are.
They're actually, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If I could take just an opportunity, can I address just for a minute the animal shelter, some of the comments that were made by Barry? That existing site, you discussed what property may be taken up at the existing site by the wastewater treatment plant expansion. Basically, all of that property around there is going to be used up. In fact, that site, I think, is a little over 60 acres, but the majority of that site is going to be used up during this project. And I also want to take this opportunity to let you know our other wastewater treatment plant down off Shady Grove Road near Spring Lake, near the county line, a large housing development is being planned right beside that plant. And we have the opportunity now to buy about 10 acres there. That's a buffer to our existing 50-acre site. And so I'll probably be coming back before you to request the funds to do that, to authorize that. We may be able to utilize some Fort Bragg resiliency funds to help us with that purchase, because they're our partner down there. You know, as you know, we treat all their wastewater. So that's just an aside. I wanted to go over that real quickly. The tap fees, I don't want to confuse the terms. So a tap fee is what we consider, a crew going out, putting a service into the ground. So, and those vary depending upon the size of the tap. So if you want to build a house and it's going to be on your property out by existing water line. The tap fee is $1,200. So that's what a tap fee is. Now, a system development fee is what is regulated by, our formula is regulated rather by a law that was passed in 2016 by the General Assembly. They came back to municipalities and counties with water systems and said, we want you to follow a couple of formulas to determine what these fees are. And as of last June, we had a public hearing and you guys voted on that. We have to do that every 5 years by statute. So the first time we did it was in 2018, and then we did it again in 2023. So a system development fee is separate from a tap fee, but it's all part of that connection charge, if you will. So I'm assuming you want to talk about system development fees?
I was looking at all of it together.
Okay.
I realized there's two animals there that we
Sure.
talked about. You guys have done very well managing your money. The latest report, you got $91 million in your unrestricted fund balance. Do we still need these? That's why I put it on the agenda. Because I get a lot of complaints about them being so high, particularly the 2-inch tap.
Right. And I think what drives that up is the system development fee. Let me just give you an example. The tap fee on a 3/4 inch by 5/8 tap, standard tap for a residential house, barn, whatever you want there. That fee's $1,200. The meter itself, its cost is included in that cost. Well, that meter is $325. So $325 of that $1,200 is just for the meter. So basically $900 is us sending a crew out there with a backhoe, calling it a locate, making sure there's no underground utilities that we're going to hit to put this in, hauling a compressor out there, having all the materials that we need, tap and sleeve and valve, et cetera, to make this tap. So that's the remaining $875. Labor, insurance, everything else that's involved in that. Our standard tap fee was $800 for years. I think we went up a couple of years ago to $1,200 when everything rose because of inflation. So that's what that tap cost is. A standard system development fee is $3,000, and I put together a little, can you bring that up, Melissa, to just talk briefly about where the fees come from. And this is directly from our study that we had. A consultant has to do those by law for us. And we got a consultant out of Florida to do this, same one that did several other municipalities in North Carolina. And it talks about how we derive at those fees. So I'd like to take just a minute to talk about it so everybody's on the same page. We have to have a public hearing, of course we did, before you approved this back in June. An ERU stands for an equivalent residential unit. That's what the standard amount of fees that's charged for a single-family dwelling, a flow for a standard family dwelling. That's what an ERU stands for. So if you need 5 ERUs for whatever you're building and need water for, the logic is you need to pay 5 times what the normal house would. You know, if you're building something and it's going to take 5 times as much water potentially, you would pay 5 times that amount. See, new connections with greater water requirements have the potential of placing more demand on the system, require more capacity, and are assessed these ERU factors accordingly. And that's what we did with the study. That's what the study recommended. You can see in Table 5 here the proposed rates, which our rates, and I'll talk about that later, we actually came in a little lower than this. I recommended lower, and then you approved that. They're actually lower than these rates of $38.50 for water and $43.20 for wastewater. Again, these aren't arbitrary numbers. These numbers come from based on our financials and our system, what remaining capacity we have, how much debt we have. All sorts of factors go into this formula that General Assembly came up with. So the report goes on to say it gives consideration to a potentially more administrative fee structure. It's common practice in the utility industry to charge capacity-related fees based upon the size of the water meter. So if you've gotten a complaint about the size, that's why. If you look over at the next page on table 6, you'll see something in that table that's called a meter factor. So a 2-inch tap can do, a 2-inch water meter can use 8 times the water of a standard 3/4 inch. So our fee is $3,000 for water, so 8 times that is $24,000. So is that clear? That's why that is, because when we build water plants, we don't build them based on what you're going to use every day or what your average is. We have to build the water plant to supply all the needs you may need during a peak time. So if you've got a service out there and it can use 8 times the water that a normal service is, you pay more for that, the ability to do that. Let me give you an analogy. If I've got a single axle dump truck and I'm putting tags on it, you know, my weight requirement's going to be such, and I pay DOT based on what that weight requirement is. But if I'm going to have a tandem, and I can put 5 times as much weight on that tandem, don't I pay DOT more for that? Sure I do, because I cause more wear and tear to that road. It's the same analogy. You pay for what you use. And one thing that this does is it prohibits people from saying, well, I want to get a larger tap, even though I only need what a standard house tap would be. And we've got them out there. You know, they want the biggest and the best thing. They're willing to pay more for the meter and the tap. And then, but now, because the system development fee's higher, you know, I've heard about 3 complaints since we enacted this. I don't know how many of you guys have heard. I've heard about 3 complaints, and it's usually when somebody wants or thinks they need much more water than they actually do. We don't get complaints from commercial industries. This is mainly from residential users where we're hearing this from. I did get one complaint from a proposed chicken farm, and he was going to use a tremendous amount of water, and he said, well, I'm going to pay you for the water. Well, the other factor in this is we don't charge anymore for having a 2-inch meter other than the upfront fee. So you pay the same amount for your water per gallon and the same meter-based charge for a 2-inch meter as you do a 3/4 inch meter. For example, our rate's $22.50 a month for a 3/4 inch meter. Well, if you've got a 2-inch meter, you only pay $22.50 here. Other places may charge you $150 or $200 a month for that 2-inch meter, plus more for what water you use once you get into a higher level. We don't do that. We have uniform water rates. So you pay the same much, just as much a gallon for your 12,000th gallon as you do for your 2,000th gallon. You understand? It's a uniform rate. So there's plus and minuses to both ways, but I hope I've kind of given you an example of what we do here with the fees. We can change the fees. We would have to go back and do another public hearing and look at that. But I want you to remember, a lot of these fees are used to finance projects too, for future projects. That's the basis of what the fees are used for. All these fees that we collect go into a capital reserve account every year. So that's why, for example, in this sewer plant, you know, we're getting ready to spend about $50 million. That's just the county's portion. And we're not planning on borrowing a dime of that. So when you say 91 million, you're going to see 25 or 30 of that gone in 2 years. That quick. because we didn't get $50 million worth of ARPA money. We don't have $50 million worth of grant. So there's lots of big projects. The project we're planning on doing out on 87, that's going to be about $10 million. We're not borrowing a dime to do that. That's another $10 million out of our fund balance that's going to come out. The water plant that we're planning on doing in Irwin, I've got that in the CIP of $70 million. Wouldn't surprise me in 5 or 6 years if it's 125, 150 million to do that project. So we're talking about huge sums of money. So the $90 million may seem like a lot, and I'm proud that we have $90 million, but you know, we're getting ready to spend a whole lot in our capital improvement program. So just keep that on the back burner there. Keep that in your mind going forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Madam Clerk, for convenience, let's break this into 3 things, put that on for further discussion. What would be the next piece is a water line from Antioch Church Road to Old Hamilton Road back over to 82. And I want to take a minute of privilege here and clear the air a little bit. My daughter lives on this road. I have no fiduciary interest in that house or that property. I just want to put that on the record. It's out there for everybody to know. Let me speak
Sure.
if I may. What brought this to light is Chief Blackman came to me when the Orange Cricket fire burned, had that fire. They apparently sucked the line dry over there. Apparently that's a dead end or something, or it turns up Rayford Road. I don't know. I haven't researched it to look at it.
Sure.
There is no water down Antioch Church Road to Old Hamilton. There's none on Old Hamilton till you get to 82. Okay. Now you get in that hairpin turn, there's a landfill over there that they're still taking water samples from the various houses over there. That's why this got put on this.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to address it. Can you bring up that other file for me? It's the one called line extension.
There it is.
There you go. And I wanted to give kind of an update about how we process line extensions when we get those requests. And we've done many of them throughout the years. We haven't done that many lately because, quite honestly, we don't get very many requests. We've got water down most roads. In fact, as far as I know, we haven't received any requests on this line other than you, Chairman Marsh, you talked to me about this over a year ago, about that you had heard some things, while you were campaigning about people needing water down that road. And so let me take just a minute. This is our copy of our ordinance here, and it says, this is from extension of water and sewer lines within the county. HRW proposes to designate, using our funds, certain restricted annual appropriations for the development of water and sewer line extensions within the county. All requests for extensions are rated on a point system, and that's what I wanted to go over briefly. So, and we've got a little scoring sheet that I'll show you here in a minute how we scored these things and rate them. Public health severity can get you up to 40 points. Cost feasibility based upon return of investments, 40 points. And contributed capital by the individual or business making the request is another 20 points for a 100-point maximum. And usually what happens is we score these, and then if they get the minimum of 50 points out of the 100, we come back to the board to let you approve or deny from that point going forward. Can we go to the, let me see if I can go to the next screen. There we go. Here's an example of a line extension worksheet. Okay. We got a justification on here. I'll go over it briefly. This customer requested a water line extension to be served to the property since their well was going dry. Okay, you see they get 20 points for each dry well. So I've got that scored down there. You see the 20 points per residence? Okay, 10 customers on Standard Lane agreed to connect and pay the associated fees to receive public water. That's the other thing. There is no mandatory connection. No mandatory connection. So if you've got 30 residents on a road and only 5 of them sign up, and the other 25 say, well, our wells are fine. that really limits the feasibility of doing a line extension. So you have to have cooperation along the whole area where you're wanting to do this. The proposed water lines extension is 1,000 linear feet and will cost $50,000 to serve those 10 households. Let's say all 10 of them signed up. So that's $5,000 a connection. So under number 2, cost feasibility, because it's $5,000 connection, it gets another 20 points. So there's 40 of the 50 you need. Contributed capital, it'll cost them $4,200 a piece for a standard water tap. And so 10 of them, that's $42,000. Well, that's 75% or more of the cost to do the line extension. So there's another 20 points. So this line extension passes. And so I would come to the board and say, this one's good. I recommend we move forward, and then it's up to you guys to do that. The next slide is Old Hamilton Road. We went out and looked at the what would be required there. And like you said, Chairman Morris, there's no need to piecemeal this because there's got to be fire flow there. And in order for there to be fire flow, we've got to run an 8-inch line from the existing 8-inch line on Iris Bryant Road, or 82, whatever you want to call it. Come up, turn, go on Hamilton Road, go up to Antioch Church Road. There's no water up there either. And then come back to the intersection with Iris Bryant and tie in right there where our water line stops. So you're talking about a little less than 2 miles of 8-inch water line to make that happen with all the associated fittings, fire hydrants, et cetera, et cetera. There's 24 people there. We're just, or 27, excuse me. We're assuming that all of them, sign up and all that, which I hadn't tried to score this or anything. I'm just giving you a cost estimate here. So the cost estimate of that would be approximately $1.5 million for this line extension, or $57,000 per connection. So that's what this is. So I'll be glad to add that this is what we conceive this to be. So I doubt it's going to meet the scoring requirement for cost feasibility, but this is up to the board what you want to do about this. But I think that's what this costs, roughly what this will cost to make this happen.
Any more questions for Mr. Ward?
Is there not a reason why we wouldn't go ahead and do this? I mean, this is serving customers here inside of the county, and you even said for the matters of fire suppression, it seems like should be taking care of our own here in the county.
That's up to the board if we want to do this or not. We can certainly move forward and do this.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Let me ask a question. If we move forward to do this, you still have to have the approval of the people to stay in that area. Is that not right?
Oh, we're not sure how many of these people want water. We may end up serving 5 houses. We're not sure about the status of the wells that are supposedly bad. We haven't tested any wells. We usually would require testing to determine the severity of what's going on there through the health department. It's usually what we do. And that may already happen. I don't know, you suggested that. That may have already been happening.
And my understanding is either Republic or Waste Management, they've got 10 or 12 houses right there around the old landfill that take an annual water sample from, nitrates, nitrides, lead, and something else. They get those residents get an annual report on it. So far, okay.
I'm going to say if we have people in this county that want water, and also for fire suppression, in order to meet the requirements that we have, I think we need to serve our citizens instead of, worrying about other things going on. So
I don't disagree. I would say whoever owns that property there is going to get the benefit of a brand new water line. And in order to develop that property moving forward, we do have things in our ordinance that talk about that. Just saying, as As a side note, that's one thing to consider when you move forward. You're making somebody's property a lot more valuable by doing that.
Even you said though, pardon.
Yes.
But even you had said that we pretty much don't get many of these requests because we got water lines everywhere here in the county. You don't have.
I agree. I agree.
Okay. So.
We certainly do not get very many requests anymore for water because you're absolutely right. We think about 95% of all county residents have access to public water.
And this falls under that 5% that doesn't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The opinion of the board to put it on the consent agenda?
I'll put it on the consent agenda.
All right, Madam Clerk, put that on the consent agenda for next week, please. Mr. Ward, the next one on here is the extension of sewer between Red Hill Church Road and Dunn.
Sewer or water?
Sewer. Dunn's already got a water line over there.
Okay.
Now, I may not have made that clear, and if I will, what I'll do is if you want to look at the feasibility of that and get back to us at a later date. I apparently thought it was just water.
Okay. Yeah, I can talk about that. I was prepared to talk about water, but
I don't want you to feel like we shanghaied you if you weren't prepared for the sewer.
I will say, can we put up that map? There you go. And this talks mainly about water. And it talks about Dunn's water line there. We already serve everyone along 421 with sewer. And I say everyone, I'm talking about Lowe's, the bank, all those folks, Zaxby's.
They're already on county sewer?
They're all on county sewer, absolutely. And so the sewer actually, there's a force main that runs that comes back, and that's what they're tied on to. So there's already sewer along the road.
I did not realize that.
Okay.
That's why we put it on there. And one of the things is, but the water line is done.
The water line is done. Now, we've got water lines on the opposite side of the road. The Dunn line is on the low side.
Okay, so from Zaxby's to Walmart?
Yes.
Is there a water line there?
No. I think the water line stops at St. Matthew's Road.
St. Matthews. So if a business wanted to go there, they're just going to have to tap on and run it in front of Zaxby's.
Or go behind and just tap on to St. Matthew's Road.
That took care of what I needed to know.
Okay. All right. And I did want to say there's a development going in or plan to go in there, on St. Matthew's Road on the low side there, back there, that we've been working with the town of Irwin to try to get that moving along. So we're trying to get finalized on what's going to happen there.
Yeah, my understanding, y'all had been working with them, and apparently they changed engineers midstream or something, and it kind of delayed things a little bit.
Yes, and then the grant was originally made to the town of Irwin, then rescinded, and they wanted us to administer it, so we're trying to work through that now.
Y'all got the money for the grant now?
We're supposed to finalize the paperwork back to the state.
Okay.
We're still waiting to hear back from the town of Irwin, some final things, but I expect that should happen shortly and we can move forward. All right.
Thank you so much. All righty. Move along to applications for boards and committees. Anybody got anything they want to add on that?
I want to ask the question, excuse me?
Couldn't hear you. What you said?
Yeah, I want to ask the question on this, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. We have a big space there for county commissioner. I'm already on that board. Would I have to be reappointed or what?
I think that's more or less just it's not district sensitive. We know that you serve on the board. This is for the 2 vacancies that are just considered appointees by you guys.
Well, that's what a question that I asked.
Yes,
If I'm
ma'am.
on that board, would I have to be reappointed now?
No, once you're assigned until change.
Okay, that's the question I asked.
Does, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Counselor, Mr. General Manager, but every year the chairman makes new committee assignments, and I hadn't done anything. I just left them like they were.
That I understood.
Okay.
That's the reason I was asking the question.
So you're there as long as you want to be. Okay, we received an application from Lily Mae Bailey, to be considered for reappointment to the Mid-Carolina Aging Advisory Committee. Anybody know anything or know any reason not to reappoint Ms. Bailey? Put it on the consent agenda for next week, Madam Clerk.
Will do.
The Cemetery Board of Trustees, it looks like we have received an application from Victoria Rodriguez, who would like to be considered for reappointment. Her term expired December 31st. And these members are all at large. So anybody have any reason not to appoint her? Put it on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. We've received an application from Steve Coons, who'd like to be considered for appointment for District 4. However, this board is not district sensitive for the Cemetery Board. So anybody know any reason not to appoint him?
No, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Witherspoon asked me to make a motion to appoint him to that board, because he said this is a District 4.
Madam Clerk, put it on for consent agenda. All righty. Having all that done, County Manager's report.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Been studying a couple other things. I have nothing further.
Okay, County Manager's report. Mr. Counselor, we have a closed session.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a closed session, but I have one question to ask before I announce the closed session. I know at one point we had agreed to do a study of bringing back the nonprofit organization. Where are we with that? Because we seem to be getting into some requests for nonprofit organizations.
All right.
And that, I think that before we make these decisions, we should know what our legal system had said that they was going to bring back to us to report.
I think the correct way to accomplish what you're after is let's put it on for new business.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, sorry, I'm working with Deputy County Manager Coley Price, and we're going to address the board in one of the next meetings on that issue.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, if you would read.
Now I have, we do have a closed session. I move that the board go into closed session for the following purpose: to discuss certain personnel matters.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Not all those who suspend and go into Closed session, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and probably seconded. Everybody in favor, get up and go home.
Amen.